Salutations, people! Welcome to Page 3 Killers, Murders That Went Unnoticed, a podcast where we dive into murder cases that went unnoticed by the nation's newspapers.
Not recording? What do you mean you're not recording?
I'm recording now.
Oh, now you're recording?
Yeah, I'm recording.
Oh, snap. All right, let's go. All right, welcome to our podcast. Brand new podcast.
Yes.
About murders and drinking and trying to be funny. How you folks doing tonight? Or this morning or whenever you're listening to this?
Yeah, I hope everybody's doing good.
Fantastic. So, this week, Mary Mamon.
A local favorite.
Levittown, baby. Levittown number 2. The Pennsylvania version. 2.0.
Born
right?
and raised.
Born and
Levittown,
raised.
born and raised.
Yeah, boy. So...
Bringing it to the home of the Eagles.
Oh, yeah, sure. Not those Giants. Anyway, this was the first murder ever in Levittown, right?
Yeah, a real interesting case that we're going to talk about.
So, yeah, well, Levittown, 52, right? That's when they started building Levittown in PA? 1900, year of our Lord, 1952. That was the first year that's when they started breaking ground. Good old Billy Levitt, right?
Yep.
So, and this happened when?
1967.
The year of our Lord, 1967. Same joke, 2 days in a row, or 2 times in a row. Jeez. Okay. Yeah, new podcast. I don't know. Was it a new... Can you call it a new podcast? We've never had an old podcast. It's just our first podcast.
Yeah. I'm not sure.
I'm not sure. All right, well, this is basically what you're going to get, people. You're going to get us talking back and forth. And then eventually you get into the meat and potatoes of things, and you'll get Shay talking about everything. Know what I mean?
Yep, jelly bean.
Yep, jelly bean. Oh, goodness. All right, I think we need to get this thing started.
Yeah. So, John, what's our drink for today? Do 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 do.
Transition music.
Do 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 do.
More transition music.
Do 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 do.
Hey there. Welcome to the first ever drink segment of Page 3 Killers. And for today, we have what we're calling the Mamon Mimosa. Now, the Mamon Mimosa is a very simple drink, and as with all our drinks, it ties in with our episode. You have to figure out what it is. Who knows? So we're going to start off with our drink today, and quick, simple. 2 ingredients. Hawaiian Punch and the driest champagne you can find. You do not want anything sweet for this, because Hawaiian Punch, as you may or may not know, is full of sugar. So when you combine the two, if you have a very sweet champagne, it's going to be way too sweet. So you take 3 ounces of your Hawaiian Punch, literally just mix it together with 3 ounces of your dry champagne, maybe mix it up in a tumbler with some ice, and put that in one of your white wine glasses. That's the tall ones, not the short round ones. They're really tall, long ones. It looks kind of pretty. And you can top that with an orange slice, or, if you're really fancy, pineapple slice. Now you can find more on our show notes page. We actually have a very complicated version of this drink, which shows you how to make Hawaiian Punch from scratch. Instead of buying the store-bought crap, you combine a bunch of different fruit juices that you may or may not be able to find at your local store, and throw that all together, and then you can make 100% from scratch Hawaiian Punch. And don't forget, in the future, I know this is episode 1, so no one really gets to do this, but in the future, we'll be posting all of our recipes up on our Patreon page, so you guys can buy the ingredients, mix your cocktails, and drink along with us. Alrighty, back to the show.
All right, back to the murders.
Back to the moitas.
Yeah, the murders. Okay, John, so let's get started. All right, so this starts in 1967.
Setting the stage. All right.
All right, so world stage right now going on, and you had Vietnam in full swing. JFK was being laid to rest. You had massive race riots breaking out across the country. You know, progress was just marching forward. There was also some seedier stuff that happened.
What do you mean seedier stuff?
I'm talking grotesque murder.
Like other moitas?
More murders.
More murders.
Yeah, these are ones that made big headlines across the country, not just regional. So you had Albert DeSalvo, who was known as the Boston Strangler, was being sentenced for the murder of 13 women in Boston. Then you had Ed Kemper in California. He was called the co-ed killer. He terrorized a local college near him that his mother and him both worked at. And then in Ann Arbor, Michigan, the main thing that dominated the news headlines was highly publicized killings of college students committed by John Norman Chapman. So crazy time in the world. Crazy, crazy time.
I don't know why no one heard about this little lazy, small little new town in Levittown, Pennsylvania.
So our case today takes us to the sleepy suburbs of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, to a town called Levittown, which was named after who, babe?
Good old Billy Levitt.
Yes, our
William
J. Levitt. So at the time in 1967, it was an idyllic place to have your family. You know, it was quiet, but close enough to the city that you still had some excitement.
I don't know about that.
Yeah, you know, it was pretty quiet times in Pennsylvania. But on March 23rd, all of that was about to change. You had a brutal attack on 2 people and the murder of 1 in the Plum Ridge section of Levittown on Peony Lane. This was an attack at the Mullery home where Lorraine Mullery was murdered and her son Donald Mullery and a neighborhood girl, Nancy Markham, were bludgeoned by Mary O'Connor Mamon.
All right, so I just want to explain how much of a big deal this is. Levittown's got like 50,000 people. It's the 9th largest city in the state of Pennsylvania, okay? And Levittown is 15 years old at this point, right? 67.
It was actually less than 10 years old at the time.
Yeah, but people were moving in 52 and 53, right? So it was finished in 57, but there was people, like they'd already had a bunch of people moving in by then.
That's true.
So there had been people living here for 15 years. Virtually no violent crime.
Absolutely none. This was the very first murder.
It was the first murder, but even beyond just murder, if you look on crime maps, even today, Levittown has some of the lowest violent crime rates in all of Pennsylvania. I mean, and again, it's the 9th largest city in the state of Pennsylvania.
And at the time, most of Levittown was surrounded by farmland.
I don't know what that has to do with anything.
Pretty cut off from everything else.
Oh, so what you're saying, you can hide bodies easy?
Oh,
is that what you're saying?
Most definitely.
Okay.
I mean, I would have found it as a perfect dumping ground.
All right, anyway.
So let's get back to it. As a lifelong resident of Levittown, both of us were born and raised in Levittown. I have to admit that I had never heard of this case until my mother told me about it.
You have personal connections with this.
Yes, my mother, her father worked at the same company as Mary Mamon. In fact, my mom.
Was it the same company? I thought he worked for a trucking company.
He worked as a truck driver for a local route delivering their product.
So he didn't work for the same company. He worked with her company.
Yes.
The company she worked. So his company worked with her.
Yeah.
So your grandfather's company worked with Mary Mamon. That's our killer, people.
Yes, okay. Mary Mamon.
So they knew each other.
Yes.
They were on a first name basis. I don't even what's your grandfather's name?
His name was Joseph Bellmeyer.
So Joe and Mary. So Joe and Mary knew each other.
So while doing my research, looking into this case, because like I said, I've heard of this story from my mom, so I decided to look into it, and it was really interesting. I found a lot of information out. So prior to the murders in 1967, Mary Mamon was brought up on charges in 1937 for an attack and murder of a 5-year-old neighborhood girl outside of Philadelphia.
And how old was Mary?
Mary was 19 at the time. Yeah, she was a 19-year-old college student. Nancy Glenn was the name of her victim.
Her supposed victim.
Yes, her supposed victim.
Nancy was definitely a victim, but whether or not it was her victim, I guess, is up to some debate.
Yeah, only her and Nancy would know, and possibly a third party, if there is one. Who knows? But we will leave that up to you once I've given you the information. Nancy Glenn's body was found outside of Philadelphia, face down in a puddle, the day after Labor Day. She was fully clothed, covered it with a rusty steel drum. The coroner originally ruled it as an accidental death, but many people in the community didn't necessarily agree with that. A lot of her family didn't. So
I don't know how you accidentally get trapped under a 55-gallon steel drum.
you know what? Anything's possible, I guess.
I'm just saying. I'm just pointing to the. I'm just looking at the evidence and making conclusions.
Yeah. So the family didn't believe that it was an accident. They sort of appealed to the mayor of Philadelphia at the time, which was S. Davis Wilson. And Mr. Wilson eventually did decide to have the case reopened. He went back and asked the coroner to do a full autopsy, which revealed some very shocking findings, actually. They found that there was mud and water in Nancy's lungs, and that she had definitely been bludgeoned, hit in the head. There was extensive damage to her skull.
Wilson, I've never seen a statue of Wilson, so I'm assuming he's very
Didn't do much.
He didn't really do much.
No.
Okay.
Not very known politician in our area. Plus, I mean, this is how many years old?
I can't do math. Oh,
40.
Man. This is 40. What are you talking? Like so it's already 63 plus 20, so 83. 83 years old.
Yeah.
All right. Well, this podcast isn't about Mayor Wilson, so.
Yeah, this podcast is about Mary O'Connor Mamon. So at the time of the murder of Nancy Glenn,
Mary O'Connor Mamon.
Yeah, Mary O'Connor Mamon. Well, at the time she was Mary O'Connor. She was not yet married or engaged to her future husband. She confessed to the murder.
Confessed?
She confessed to three different people that she did it. After having a nervous breakdown that landed her in an institution. So, you know how much.
Oh, and this is like 1930s institutions. This is like a
the sanitarium or sanatorium.
This is like before One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. This is.
Yeah, there was no
not
Nurse Ratched.
One
Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest.
Is that it?
Nurse Ratched.
With Nurse Ratched? Okay,
yeah.
That's what I thought.
So she had a mental breakdown, and she confessed this to a friend of hers, Marie Phillips. Mrs. Phillips, being a solid citizen, immediately reported it to police.
Whoop, whoop.
Yeah, in her statement that she gave, she said, "I sent her to my room and told her to lie down and rest. She then showed me the newspaper and said, 'I am responsible for the death of Nancy Glenn.'" End quote. That's not where all the damning confession. But the confessions given by Mary to her friend, her father, and even the police were not enough to secure, a guilty verdict in this case. Which is shocking. It actually is. Prior to the start of the murder trial, which took place in February 1938, Mary's uncle, who was a common pleas court judge named Harry S. McDevitt, and her father, Robert O'Connor, spoke out quite vocally about her innocence, saying that, she did it to satisfy her ego. They said she had a great ego.
Well, also, I guess all of those confessions will be considered hearsay anyway. So they're not even admissible in court.
Well, I mean, a confession to a police officer, like a detective, like, is hearsay? Like, I get the confession to
that's all
her
hearsay.
father and her friend,
That's all hearsay.
would be hearsay, if not backed up by actual evidence. I mean, they didn't have recording systems like that.
This is all before Miranda, too, so they're probably not going to be like, oh, she didn't have a lawyer present.
True. Prior to the trial, Judge McDevitt, her dad, Robert O'Connor, they spoke out a lot.
Wait, so she's the daughter of a judge?
No, her uncle's
Her uncle's a judge. Her uncle's
a judge. Her dad, they did not specify what his profession was in any of the articles that I read. So that's...
He was the black sheep of the family. His brother was a judge. He was a trash man. No offense to trash man. Sanitary workers, you guys do good work.
2 thumbs up for sanitation workers. But Apparently, they also said that Mary had some very strange habits.
Mannerisms?
Yes. So she would do things to put herself in the center of attention. One of the things being she would
Lie about murdering people?
not just that, she would write letters about herself, sometimes good things, sometimes bad things, and send them to people while pretending to be somebody else. So she would sign the letter from somebody else.
She's a clout chaser.
Yes. But she would also not just write letters to other people, she would write letters and mail them to herself from other people, which was really strange.
But where?
But why? I guess it was just to, make herself feel more important than she actually was.
And these aren't even emails. These, she had to pay for postage.
Yes.
These are handwritten.
Postage. Yeah, handwritten letters. Had to pay for the paper.
Oh, good Lord. She, this is an investment on her end.
Yeah, a big investment. She would do these weird things, and they never thought anything about it until all this happened.
Until she done murdered someone.
Yeah.
Or said she murdered someone.
And her father said, that at the time there was not a lot of attention on her. Her best friend, Marie Phillips, had just gotten engaged, and she got married in the summer prior to this. So they gave that as the reason as to why she confessed to this crime.
Wait, what was the reason? She was just overcome with grief?
No, she was jealous of her best friend for getting engaged and married.
I'm completely not paying attention. I thought you said something else. I'm sorry.
Yeah, so Marie Phillips, her friend, who she confessed to,
Gotcha.
had just become, she was engaged and had just married earlier that summer.
Okay.
And her father said that was the reason why she falsely confessed to murdering Nancy Glenn.
It's like Philadelphia Instagram clout chasers.
Yep. So all of this goes to trial in February of 1983.
83?
Yeah.
Was it 50 years later?
1938. I'm so sorry. My dyslexic brain keeps mixing numbers up.
Okay.
So in 1938, in February, it goes to trial, where she testifies in front of a jury of 9 men and 3 women that she did hit Nancy Glenn with the back of her hand, but denied the allegations that she intended to intentionally hurt Nancy or drown her.
All right, the only part I heard there was that there was women on the jury. I didn't think that was happening yet.
Listen, boy.
No, I'm being serious. I didn't think they had women on juries yet.
Yeah, they did.
Was that a real thing yet? Well, I guess the 20s. Well, they got the franchise in 1920, so I guess 40 years later or 20 years later, they probably were sitting on juries, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, they did find women.
Maybe not down south.
They finally did find women competent enough to sit on a jury.
Skeptical.
You're skeptical. Okay, sure. Gave her statement to them. An article that I read quoted her saying, "She was standing beside me. I just sort of swung around and hit her with the back of my hand. Nancy just fell. I felt her pulse and didn't know what happened. I thought she was dead." She went on as to say in another statement that I found, "I got a piece of tin from somewhere and put it over her, and then I got away as quickly as possible."
All right, so at this point, she's not admitting to murdering anyone. She's admitting to accidentally killing her.
Yeah. So she's admitting that she didn't know she was alive still. She thought she killed her. She then moved her to an area that was less seen and covered her with some metal, but unknowingly, Nancy was still alive, and was placed face down in a puddle that she drowned in because she wasn't dead yet.
All right, I need to say something.
Yeah.
I know this is our first podcast. We don't know what we're doing, but hell, we're 740 seconds into this podcast, and we've completely not talked about the murder in Levittown.
We're getting to that. So this is really
this is all something else. This has nothing to do with what we're actually talking about. This is the inception. This is the murder within the murder case. The inception murder case.
Yes, and that's why I found this case so interesting. Was not just because it was local, not just because there's a
personal tie.
Personal
you just happen to have a personal connection. Yeah,
but
that's not why you chose it.
That this murder, if they had done something at the time of this murder, it could have prevented the other murders from happening.
But you probably didn't do it.
Well,
who knows if you did it?
There was no evidence of anybody else. I mean, she did offer a confession. True, you can't really trust it because, she mentally, you don't know where she was, at the time. Plus, obviously, you'll find out later on, she probably had many, many psychological issues that were untreated.
All right, keep on going.
Goes to the jury, after they go back and forth. I mean, this trial lasted not very long, probably around 12 days, I believe was the record, was 12 to 15 days.
12 days?
Yeah, with breaks and stuff.
We went down to Virginia, right? They said if they couldn't prove their case in one day, the people just would walk free.
Yeah, but
back in like the 1700s.
Yeah, back in the 1700s.
Prosecution had one day to prove an entire case. Now you have cases that are like decades long.
Yeah, I guess they wanted to make sure they did it right.
Like 12 days is like an eternity.
So it goes to the jury, and they deliberate for roughly several hours. Just not very long. And they came back with a not guilty verdict. One of the articles.
I feel like someone got paid off by the judge. Right? Like her uncle just slipped some dollar bills.
Well.
Like, because it only takes one. You have to have a unanimous guilty.
So they did find her not guilty. And one of the articles that I read said that there was a audible gasp through the courtroom. That everyone in attendance at the trial was so surprised that they found her not guilty.
Mm-hmm. This is a manslaughter, right? Not even a murder.
Yeah, it was voluntary manslaughter.
Voluntary manslaughter.
Yeah, so
you can imagine. Well, I guess
accidental.
They could have tried her for involuntary manslaughter.
Yeah.
Basically leaving her to die.
Yeah, at the time, I think the Pennsylvania laws were a lot different in regards to like how they are currently.
The levels of murder.
Yeah. I believe it was the base of, what our current system is.
So this was like the lowest possible crime.
Yeah.
In terms of like if you're responsible for killing another human being, this is the lowest possible crime.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So at the end, after the verdict was reached, a lot of people were not satisfied with that verdict at all.
Well, Nancy's dad and some more powerful people, right?
Because
they got the mayor to reopen the case.
Yes.
So this is basically power people, like power plays on both sides.
Yeah, she had a family member who was a big football coach. I believe it was down in Virginia, and he coached like a high level college football team.
Like Virginia A&T.
Yeah, like one of those. So they weren't satisfied with the verdict of this, and Pennsylvania did open up an investigation into possible tampering. There was no information as to how that was eventually played out. I think it just got dropped.
All I'm saying is if I'm a juror and someone keeps on slipping me some Benjamins, I mean Benjamin's a lot of money back in the day. It made me one Benjamin. maybe even like a $5 bill, because that was probably a lot of money. You know, I'm keeping that. I'm staying on the hush hush. I don't care. I'll pay my mortgage.
Yeah. So now we're gonna get into the actual case that we're about to talk about.
Oh, you mean after 15 minutes we finally get to talk about like what the episode's about?
Yeah.
Okay.
So following her acquittal for murder, Mary finished her college degree in chemistry, and in 1943 she becomes Mary O'Connor Mamon. She married and moved to Levittown, PA. Her husband was named Maurice Mamon.
Well, all I'm saying is the O'Connor mimosa doesn't have the same.
Yeah, the O'Connor mimosa just doesn't sound right.
Yeah,
so the Mamon mimosa.
The Mamon mimosa. I've had way too many of them so far.
Let's take a sip of this. Oh, so good, babe.
So sweet. It's so sweet.
So sweet. Now they've moved to Levittown. They've had some children. You know, they have 3 biological sons, and they adopted their 4th.
They adopted?
Yeah, they adopted 1 child. So they had 4 children total. But all was not well in the Mamon household. Mary's odd behaviors continued even into this period of her life. And it was a little much for
Hey, we got a photo of Mary Mamon?
Yes, I do. I will put it up.
I want to see the photo. I want to see it. Hold on. Just bring up the photo real quick. Great, some great podcast dead time. I want to see a photo of this lady. She's
okay.
Because she is crazy. She's got to be good looking. That's all I'm saying. She's right. She's already probably murdered some kid. I don't know.
Here's her in her younger days.
Oh, definitely not. I shouldn't say that. To each their own. To each their own.
Yes. Well, you know.
Oh, there you go. There's a good one. Is that her?
That's probably her older years.
Yeah, I'm just saying like that. That looks a lot like the first photo.
This right here was an article, some images from the article. I mean, she wasn't too bad looking. I mean, she probably would have been okay for the time.
I don't know what that's supposed to mean. She doesn't look like she did it though. All right, keep on going. I'm sorry. I'm getting all sidetracked and whatnot.
That's okay. You're a little fishnicked.
Fishnicked.
So, they've moved to Levittown with their children.
So they got 4 kids in Levittown? What's actually, and they were in Plum Ridge?
Plum Ridge, yep, on Peony Lane.
God, those houses ain't that big.
Yeah.
I'm just saying 4 kids in one of them houses.
Yeah. You know, so everything was not well in their household. And she ended up divorcing her spouse in 1957. Just about a decade before the actual murders.
Okay.
You know?
This is, okay, yeah.
All right.
I'm on track.
Yeah.
Stay focused.
So she worked at a Fortune 500 fruit and vegetable processor as a chemist.
Quote unquote, what is it? Fortune 500, quote unquote, Fortune 500 fruit and vegetable processor. So, all I'm saying is think about the drink we made and make some connections. There may be some hints about which company she worked for.
Yeah, I'll leave a list of some of the
potential. There weren't too many Fortune 500 companies based near Levittown, Pennsylvania.
I believe we had like Nabisco. There was.
Hey, we can't get sued over this, can we?
I don't.
You start saying this. Yeah, this is speculatively.
I mean, there's only a few companies that had processing facilities in and around Levittown and Philadelphia, you know? So you had Nabisco, Tasty Cake, Coca-Cola.
Oh yeah, there's a big Coca-Cola company. Yeah.
Yeah. Pepsi. I believe we had a Pepsi.
I don't know how much fruit and vegetables are in Pepsi. Cocaine? Cocaine is a vegetable technically, right? There was still cocaine in Coca-Cola at this time, right? No?
I'm not
by
sure.
the 30s it was out of there?
Yeah, I think by the 30s.
Oh, this is the 70s. This is the 70s. Oh, it's way out of there.
Yeah.
They just got a bunch of caffeine in there. Never mind.
So she worked for this company that we're not allowed to name for legal reasons.
And that there was a cover up, right? The local newspapers weren't allowed to name it either, or they didn't out of respect.
Yeah. So
we'll just leave it at that.
Left unnamed in all the articles that I read. It was quoted that, her boss, that she was a dependable employee. That
she was a sociopath. Sociopaths are incredibly dependable.
She was a model employee, but her coworkers said she wasn't necessarily friendly.
She'll dom you out in a second.
To most people, they said, quote, she never seemed to be fond of anybody, end quote.
Sounds like you.
I'm just not fond of people.
Except for me.
Yeah. Or, not live ones anyway.
And Kitty. You like Kitty.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, well, when she's not trying to bite me.
Sometimes you like her.
Yeah, when she wants to cuddle and be nice. Yes. We're at the point now, she's been divorced. She's working her job. She's just living her life. Just focusing on her work and her children. All right. Her children became the center of her life. Okay. She did have a bowling league that she was in, and her...
Because it's the 60s and everyone's in a bowling league.
Yeah. I was surprised when I looked at how many bowling leagues there were.
You need to read the book like Bowling Alone. It's so sad. It's such a sad book.
Yeah. So her neighbors around this time said that she was pleasant and well-liked, but could be a bit odd and eccentric and strange.
No, it sounds like everybody in Levittown, honestly.
She was, and at this time period, women wore dresses and skirts, and Mary was said to be quite masculine in appearance, and that she would often be found wearing men's clothing, trousers instead of skirts. And some neighbors had said, she would be prettier if she wore just more feminine.
It's like the 60s. What are you talking about? Like, isn't feminism like a thing right now?
Not in this area.
Not in Levittown.
Not in this area, no. In fact, my mom actually said that up until she was in high school, so at this time, my mom would have been 14.
So they're Roman Haas at this point.
Yeah. Right? So it would have been Wilson. Wilson High School. It would have been Roman Haas at this time. I believe in the next year or two, they would open up Wilson, which my mom attended. And it was around her senior year. So maybe 5 years. Or
yeah, she said she was 14 when this happened, right?
Yeah. 4 or 5 years after this was when girls started to wear jeans. So, those Levi's.
Poor guys.
Yeah, I know. Then you guys got lost the ability to see women's legs.
Keep on going before I say something that's going to get me in trouble.
Showing off the ankles.
Showing off the ankle.
Everything is, going fine in Mary's life, except, she's a bit odd, bit weird to everybody else, but generally pleasant. And her son, Robert Mamon, is engaged to Mary Ann Martin. Now, this is where our story's about to get a little interesting, a little juicy.
Yeah, it's been kind of boring so far, except for that first murder.
So we're going to be spilling this tea right now.
Are we sipping that tea?
Oh, yes, we are.
Sipping that tea.
Sipping that tea. All right, so Mary's oldest son, who's engaged to Mary Ann Martin.
So then we got 2 Marys, so we need to pay attention.
Yeah, so, I'm just going to say Mary Ann.
So we got Mary and Mary Ann. Pay attention, people.
Yeah, a lot of Emmys going on there. So she was engaged to Robert Mamon. And her aunt Ethel Markham talks her out of marrying Robert by, she's
Wait,
just never liked him, I guess.
so Mary, regular Mary, dropping shit. She's a single mom at this point, right?
Yeah, she's a single
So
mom
she's a single
of
mom.
4 boys.
Of 4 boys.
Yep.
Good Lord,
and her
that's
husband
rough.
was trying to get alimony.
Good for him. Good for him.
Because she was the breadwinner.
She's a chemist. She's probably making bank.
Yeah, she was. Definitely, but at that time, and it was probably a job that not many women held.
Well, that's why they found her to be unfriendly. They were all misogynists.
Probably. She was probably, ahead of her time.
This is the early 60s. They were probably just like, we don't need no women here.
Yeah. So, Mary Ann's aunt, Ethel Markham, talks her out of marrying Robert Mamon. And in a statement that Ethel made to some newspapers, she said, I told Mary Ann I couldn't see him. He's sissified.
Sissified. Wait, so his mom was, we'll use the technical, androgynous.
Yes.
Right, so she's quite manly.
Yes, she's very masculine in feature, her build, and she dresses
and she's a single mom.
Mm-hmm.
But her boys are sissified, quote unquote.
Yes, so they were mama's boys. In fact, Ethel said he was a mama's boy and kept on his mother's apron strings.
I wonder if he was gay. Because he wouldn't have admitted it back then.
I don't think so. Just because of how he reacts after the engagement is broken off by Mary Ann.
Because that's how they would have referred to it, sissified.
Yeah,
they would have referred to gay men as sissified.
What they mean by sissified is that he was a mama's boy. He had to have his mother's approval for everything. He was very much
but that's probably how she wanted it. It's probably
how
Mary Mamon wanted her boy. She was probably very domineering.
Yes. So, they still lived in her house, so she was very much the, in charge.
She was the patriarch.
Mm-hmm. Yes. So when Mary Ann and Robert's engagement breaks off, Mary Ann starts receiving some strange, obscene phone calls. Heavy breathing on the line, and it was most likely Robert and his mother calling her up and, just basically harassing her about this canceled engagement.
So they were nice guys.
I would not.
R/nice guys. That's what they were?
No.
No?
No.
Oh, Reddit? Where Reddit wasn't around in 1967?
Nope.
No? Okay. They sound like R/nice guys.
So Ethel Markham saves her niece from marrying Robert Mamon. So unlike Robert, his mother began to focus all of her anger on Ethel Markham. She blamed Ethel for ending this engagement, for ruining her son's life, just destroying everything.
Definitely R/nice guys.
All right. So at this time, Mary Mamon's odd behaviors become completely destructive and actually take they step up a notch in intensity. So her neighbors start receiving letters from...
Oh, she's back with the letters?
She's back writing the letters. And she's writing letters to her neighbors, not from herself, from other people, talking about herself. They reference the previous murder of Nancy Glenn and Mary's arrest, and the police believe that these letters were written by Mary and mailed out to her neighbors. And then Mary began to withdraw from society a bit.
So, like, I don't know. I'm thinking about this. Just hear me out. Like, maybe she accidentally kills the girl, Nancy.
Yeah.
Right, back in the 30s. And, you know, she does it, but she doesn't mean it. Like, her story is 100% true. She accidentally backhands her and this, that, and the other thing. And it's just like PTSD. And this just triggers it. It's like snap.
That is an actually interesting conclusion right there. That I didn't think about that. Yeah.
Right. I'm not a psychologist. I don't know how PTSD really works, but
yeah.
Like, it just all of a sudden she seemed to be almost normal. Like, you know, strange, whatever.
Yeah.
That's just how strange people are.
Yeah, and then she starts up again with the letters.
With the letters. Like, that sounds like something. That sounds like a triggering event.
Yeah, she had a lot. Like, at this time, there was a lot going on. She had, you know, she divorced her husband.
She was a single mom of 4 boys.
She was a single mom. Her ex-husband's trying to get alimony from her.
Good for him.
You know, her son's engagement is destroyed. So a lot of things are backfiring in her life. And in fact, she withdraws from society. She's becoming even more unstable, that her job even forces her to take a medical leave of absence. So now she's losing her job, you know. All of these things are culminating, and we're about to see a very strange, bizarre revenge plot form that Mary just thinks up and decides to put into action.
Now I'm intrigued.
Oh yeah.
I don't really know the rest of the story. So, I know she ends up. Well, I ain't gonna ruin it. Go ahead.
Yeah, don't ruin it for everybody. So.
Oh, they're listening to a podcast about murders. I wonder what's gonna happen next.
Yes. So on the quiet morning of March 23rd, 1967, it's just a few days before Easter, and it's a Ash Wednesday, I believe. Would have been that day. It was a Wednesday. At 8:00 in the morning, Lorraine Mullery calls down to Ethel Markham, who lives on Peony, and tells her that she has received quite a strange letter in the mail that referenced her and Ethel. And she asks Ethel to come down to her house so that she can discuss it with her. Ethel agrees, and a short time later, makes the trip down Peony Road to the Mullery residence. When she arrives at the door, it's open, and there's some noise going on inside, which isn't uncommon because they have a TV, and she thinks that the TV is running.
Is it color TV?
No, it's black and white.
It's black and white. Okay.
Black and white. So she knocks, and her knocks go unanswered, and she thinks it's a little strange. She does hear some noises, that she reports as that she thought they were from the TV. But from what I'm going to tell you coming up, that's not the case, and that she probably would have witnessed a murder if she had walked in there. Her knocks get unanswered. She does not venture into the house, so she returns home, and about 20 minutes later, her daughter, Nancy Markham, decides that she's going to be a nice daughter, and she's going to run down to the Mullery home to go see Lorraine and pick up the letter and bring it to her mom so that she can take a look at it. Well...
Wait, hold on. This is like 67. What kind of TV stations are they watching? There's no ID network. Or if they're watching like the Lone Ranger and they're thinking like someone screaming bloody murder is just... this is normal.
I don't know what was on the TV. She just said that she heard noises. That the TV was on.
I wonder
So
if we can look that up.
I don't know. Maybe we can look up what was playing at 8 o'clock in the morning on Ash Wednesday in 1967.
There's only 3 stations. It's not like it can be too hard.
Yeah. So Nancy goes down to the Mullery home. And she knocks on the door. But it is not Lorraine Mullery who answers the door. It is Mary Mamon. Now, reportedly, Mary pulls Nancy into the house and says, "That's okay. You'll do."
How do they know that?
Nancy, I guess.
Okay, I guess.
Yeah, because, well, let me go through this and then you can see where this is going. It's about to get a little gory here. So Nancy is being dragged into the house by Mary Mamon, and it becomes very, very clear right away that things are not okay. There's blood everywhere. And one of the first things that Nancy sees is Lorraine Mullery's body in the bedroom. And Donald Mullery, Lorraine Mullery's 11-year-old son who had some developmental disabilities, was lying on the foot of the stairs.
That's messed up.
Both had been brutally attacked. So at this time, Nancy sees this carnage and she starts trying to escape. She's then struck about 15 times in the head with a hammer. So it's a very violent, very bloody attack.
It's one of those old school hammers too, made of iron, heavy.
Yeah, so ooh, I just got a little squeamy right there. Not good with blood.
But she survived, right? Nancy survived.
Yes. So later, about half an hour later, Nancy and Donald, who are the sole survivors of this attack, are found by Lorraine's 13-year-old daughter, Patty Mullery, who was returning home from the early morning church service at Immaculate Conception Church.
Oh, I know exactly where that's at.
I know. It was right down the street from my house. Literally, maybe a 10
5-minute walk?
Yeah, 5-minute walk from my house in Indian Creek. It's right there. That school's no longer there anymore. They did shutter their doors a few years ago. Yeah.
I had a cousin who went there.
Yeah. So her daughter Patty returns home from church service for Ash Wednesday with Andrew Mealy, who's a neighborhood friend, and they call the police. The police arrive a short time later at 9:03 a.m. And Nancy and Donald are rushed right away to a local hospital. In all the articles, they don't say what the name of the hospital was.
Lower Bucks?
I would assume that it was Lower Bucks.
See, this is the problem with this. In all of our future podcasts, I'm not going to know any of these things. I'm not going to know what the local hospital. I can't give all these.
Yeah. But at the time, I think journalism wasn't what it is today. I guess they didn't want to name the hospital because they didn't want people going there and,
bothering people about seeing her?
Yeah.
It had to be Lower Bucks.
Because this was a big deal when this happened.
I don't think there was another hospital until you get to Philadelphia.
Yeah. So Donald and Nancy are rushed to the hospital, and the police begin their investigation into the murder of Lorraine. Because unfortunately, unlike Donald and Nancy, she did not survive the attack on her. the police start the investigation. At the time when they first saw Lorraine's body, they assumed that she had been shot, not bludgeoned with a hammer. So you can just imagine the extent of the damage done. I did not see any pictures of this.
I would imagine
but
a hammer does significantly more damage than a bullet. A bullet's in and out.
Yeah,
It's just a little hole. You exsanguinate.
So, like I said, I did not see any pictures. I did find a lot of quotes that said that the scene was extremely bloody. In fact, I did find a Facebook page where people were talking about, when they were kids at this time, the stories going around and just, everything that the police were saying and just neighborhood gossip about this case.
Was your mom in lockdown or something?
What, my mom?
Yeah.
Yes, my mom got put... After this happened, my grandfather called, and he was driving home. In fact, he said he broke the speed limit driving home because my mom, my aunt, and my grandmother, my nan, were all home alone. And they did not know where Mary Mamon was at the time. And they were afraid that she was coming to other people that she associated with their homes. So he told my mom, lock all the doors and don't answer them until I get home. So yeah, that's kind of crazy. But back to the police investigation, babe.
Okay. Yeah.
This is the juicy details and everything.
Yeah, no one cares about your family. Back to the killing.
Yeah. So after questioning the neighbors, the police sent out an APB that got it a little wrong. Okay. So the neighbors reported seeing a strange man meandering and skulking around outside. Skulking around the Mullery home. So an APB was issued for a white male, 30 to 35 years old, wearing a car coat.
That's not even close. Like, she was probably in her 50s or 60s at this point. 50s.
Yeah.
Right? She was 19 and 39.
Women at this time, they looked younger for their age. I mean, I can show you a picture of the APB that they released, and to me, it didn't look like Mary Mamon, but I mean,
she's 48. She's 48 at the time.
I mean, if you're seeing somebody from across the street, like looking out your window,
I mean, you can't even tell what gender they are.
Yeah, exactly.
I guess you could be off on the age by a little bit.
But Mary was known to wear men's clothing, so it sort of fits.
You mean she wasn't out in a sundress?
No, she wasn't out in a sundress. What's that movie with Nicole Kidman and the perfect suburban wives, Stepford Wives.
Stepford Wives. Never seen it.
Where the women go insane and from like being suburbia,
So from
Suburban
being
housewives.
1967 Levittown.
Yeah.
Like, literally, it was probably based on Levittown women in 1967.
Yes. They release this APB and they finally get to the hospital where they can interview the Markham family and while Nancy is recovering in intensive care after surgery. So they've questioned Ethel and the family, the Markham family, and Nancy is awake. In a lucid moment, Nancy tells the police that her attacker was Mary Mamon. So the police start investigating Mary. So they placed the Mamon household under surveillance. Don't see Mary at all. What they do see is around midnight, one of Mary's sons backs the car out of the garage and heads out of town on the highway. It is at this time that they believe that she was either in the trunk, that Mary was in the trunk or in the back seat and was fleeing the jurisdiction of Levittown and Pennsylvania.
It's Bristol Township, right?
Yeah, Bristol Township. While Mary is on the run from police, the community is really left wondering, how this could have happened, what led up to this, why, like, how could this happen here? This is Levittown, this is sleepy, quiet town, nothing like this has ever happened, so some people start speculating that Mary made a mistake and mixed up the addresses and accidentally went to the Mullery home instead of the Markham's home, because they are off by one digit. I am not going to give the exact addresses of these two houses because they are very easy to find. If you're interested in it, it is posted online somewhere. I'm not going to tell you where, just because I don't want people going to these homes right now, because nobody related to this case lives there any longer. The Mullery's home and the Markham's home were only separated by a few doors. I mean, they were like 10 houses away from each other. Like 10 digits,
So that's actually only like probably 3 or 4 houses away.
Yeah, it's not that far from each other.
Just in case you guys don't know, in Levittown, it's not necessarily every other number.
Yeah. So
sometimes they skip a number.
One side of the street will be odd, the other side will be the evens.
And they skip numbers because the roads aren't always straight.
Yeah.
So on curves, the inside will have the inside of the curve will be whatever.
Yeah.
4, 6, 8, 10. But the inside will skip numbers. The outside of the curve will have all the numbers. So if this is on the inside, so it could be as few as 2 or 3 houses away.
Yeah, and Levittown streets are very
curvy.
Yeah, and I believe it was designed that way to prevent speeding.
Never heard that before.
Yeah, it was actually designed to prevent, because it was a community where you would raise your children. It was marketed as a community great for raising your children. So a lot of that's why the streets are all curved, was to prevent people from speeding through the sections and possibly hitting a child.
That makes sense.
Yeah, it was great planning on behalf of Mr. Levitt.
Good old Billy Levitt.
Yep.
Oh, and it was modeled after a graveyard, right? Everyone gets their own plot of land.
Yes.
Yeah.
Houses were put up in a day.
Yep.
I believe they got it down by the end. They were able to construct a house in like an hour. Like just the outside. The frame. Like they were able to do it within an hour. The neighbors and, the community are speculating one thing, while the police are speculating an entirely different thing. Their theory is that Mary planned to lure Ethel down to the Mullery residence in order to kill her. It might not have been Lorraine who called to get Ethel down to the Mullery residence.
So she's like going 2 levels deep at this point.
Yeah. They think that she planned to, and Nancy came down, Ethel came down, but at the time she was busy murdering Lorraine and Donald and assaulting Donald. So when Nancy came down, instead, she couldn't have a witness. So that's who, unfortunately, was an innocent bystander in all of this.
Took 15 whacks to the face.
Yeah. Just insane. So that's what the police are thinking at this time. Later on, after Mary is brought in for this murder, she actually confesses and gives testimony to this fact in court, that that's what her plan was. So
Another confession.
yes, another confession. So as the police are looking for Miss Mary Mamon, they find the hammer that was used in the attacks in a churchyard later that day. It was said that the hammer, the handle, the wood had been shaved down to remove the blood stains, and the matching wood with blood on it was found in the Mamon home.
Slight oversight.
Slight oversight. Police also recovered the car coat that Mary was wearing during the bludgeoning of all three victims.
I want a car coat. I want a coat that I'm only going to wear in the car.
Yes, her cloth car coat, which was shredded into a lot of pieces. I believe one thing referenced like 100. Another one I found was like 400. So I'm just gonna say it was torn up into pieces. And the only piece not recovered was the right sleeve, which police believed was so covered with blood that they just burned it to get rid of it. Because they couldn't cut it up and disguise it as like rags or anything. So she then apparently gave these things to her son Robert to dispose of, which I guess if the police found him, he did a terrible job getting rid of everything.
Oh, he started all this.
Yes, he did.
It was all Robert's fault.
Yes. Right now, the police are like, okay, yes, Mary Mamon, she's the one done it.
She done did it.
She done did it. We gonna get her. So, she's fled Pennsylvania. She's headed south, you know. She manages to elude police for about a week before the FBI locates her in a convent in Mobile, Alabama.
Oh, people from Mobile, Alabama would like to correct you on how you said that.
Yeah.
Mobile, Alabama.
Mobile, Alabama.
Yeah, go to Mobile, Alabama and call it Mobile. See what happens there.
And this will shock you, babe. It took almost a year to extradite her from Alabama back to PA. Which I could not believe. I didn't know that you had to extradite people in the United States. Because up until this, I'd always assumed that was like, oh, we have to extradite them from, other countries.
Well, yeah, you have to maintain a chain of custody. Down in Alabama, they have to make sure they process everything correctly into their system, and then they have to. I don't know why it would take a year.
Yeah.
But you never know.
Yeah. So
this was Mobile, Alabama in 1967. We're not exactly.
Yeah, true. So it is now around November 1969, when the trial for Lorraine's murder and the attack on Nancy and Donald gets underway. So the trial starts. It lasts just under a month. It was pretty cut and dry. And the jury is presented with all of this evidence and a very strong motive. Her hatred of Ethel Markham for breaking up her son's engagement and relationship and all that. So the case looks pretty strong. It's no surprise that when the case goes to the jury 2 days before Thanksgiving, that the jurors convict Mary of first-degree murder. They recommend a life sentence Because at the time, I'm not sure if they had death penalty in PA. They might have.
Yeah, I believe Pennsylvania's always had a death penalty. They've
But
never
I don't
not
think
had
that they ever put women on it.
It's hard to get put on death row in
life.
Pennsylvania to begin with. It's not like we're Texas.
Oh yeah, Texas is just crazy.
No offense to Texas, but you guys have a fast lane.
Oh yeah, and plus their courts is totally set up to maximize the number of people put to death. But we're not talking about that today. So she got a life sentence and goes to prison, where she sits there for quite some time before dying in prison for complications related to her emphysema in 1983.
Oh, so that's where the 83 comes from. That makes sense.
That's
okay.
why I kept mixing them up. She was denied. She did apply for parole several times, and every time they denied her parole. So that's how that case ends.
So I figured out why Mobile, Alabama was so preoccupied.
Why?
Oh, they had Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. marching in their city in 1968. They were a little. She may have shared a jail with MLK.
That's crazy. I didn't even look that up. I did not even see that at the time.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, this is.
Yeah, so that's where this case really ends. One dead, two survivors, Nancy Markham and Donald Mullery, both survive, but do suffer some very long-lasting effects. Both have extensive brain damage from the attacks and some permanent physical effects. Donald, unfortunately, he was already developmentally disabled, and this led to him being institutionalized for the rest of his life.
So I lied about the MLK thing. He wasn't in Alabama, but he died during this time, so Alabama was kind of ticked off about that. So,
babe, journalistic integrity here.
This is journalistic integrity. I'm correcting the record. It wasn't that he marched there. It was that he had died during this whole fiasco. And
so Donald is institutionalized. Nancy goes on to live a life,
behind bars.
No, Nancy.
Oh, Nancy. I'm sorry. This is not
Nancy
Mary.
goes on to live a life.
There's only like 3 names in this whole story. You got 2 Nancys. You got like 3 Marys. You have an Ethel.
Yes. And Lorraine's husband, unfortunately, after, going through all of this, losing his son, he has his daughter Patty still, but he does die a few short years later in 1971, and which is very sad. So
it is.
Yeah. Sorry to bring everybody down. But yeah, so that it ends with, Mary getting caught, tried, guilty.
And now you know.
In prison. And now you know.
Well, I guess that's it for this episode. What's up for next week?
Ooh, next week is a very interesting case. I got so into this one. I went honey badger on it, and it is a tasty case.
A tasty cake?
A tasty case, babe.
Okay.
Not tasty cake.
You got me excited.
So next week, we are going to be talking about the Clown Mask murders in Port Arthur, Texas in 1998.
I don't even know what was going on in 1998. I forget most of the year.
It's a case full of intrigue. It's going to be great. And just a reminder, guys, Stay sexy and don't get murdered.